So this is one of those videos that it really pains me to make because I've liked Tomoe a lot ever since the Setsubun event. I thought it was a really adorable event that we got to do. I thought the story was very fun. And when she finally got her own summer version, I was super excited because I was like, finally, she's getting her just desserts. And then they kind of just made her the arts version of Summer Okita, but a little bit better and a bit more usable. Now, is that going to stop me from coming out here and saying that, you know what, maybe she's not the best summer servant to have ever released and tell people to not summon for her? Well, okay, in the best interest for your Saint Courts, I am going to recommend that you save for better servants. But if you want to be extremely based and you want to go for a quality, very adorable, cute servant, then I can't stop you from summoning for this servant. And I'm going to give you some reasons, or at least do my best to explain what this servant does, because it's not like they particularly do a whole lot. Again, they may have made her a better version of the Summer Okita, but that's not like that was a very high bar in the first place. But as a resident Tomoe simp, I'm gonna try my best in the background to make her look as good as possible with the gameplay I got going, and I'm also going to try to talk about her like she's a little bit better than she might actually be. But look, we all have hills that we're gonna die on, right? If Morgan wasn't a good servant, I would still be out here simping for her. Same thing for Tomoe. Some of our waifus are really good, and some of them are not so great. And this is one of those ones where I really just gotta die on this hill. So strap in where a man is about to just cope for the next like 7 minutes about a servant that he really likes. And at the very least, maybe it's a little entertaining for you. So let's just go ahead and start diving into Tomoe's kit, starting off with her hit. You know, she's got some pretty decent enough NP gain at 0.55%. You know, if you get a crit or two on those arts cards with 3 hits a pop, you can regenerate a decent bit of your NP, especially because Tomoe kind of wants to be an arts crit servant, so there's a little bit of synergy there with that. She can gain access to like immediate stars on some of her skills. So really, if you think about it, even though it's only 0.55%, really she's providing stars to really gas up her own NP gain. So realistically, she should be fine as long as you're finding those crits, especially if you do have, say, like a 20-30 on one of your Castorias, because I'm assuming you're going to use her with Castoria because she's going to need that access to immediate NP, that extra NP gain, and Lord knows she's going to need those big arts buffs because she's not really going to have her own for very long. Now, you can definitely tell that this was a slight against me when they made this servant, because you guys know that I like my 5-hit and above extra attacks. It's a composite card that gen stars NP and does big boy damage, but you know what? Even though they did this as a personal slight against me and they made it a 4-hit extra attack, we still love Tomoe regardless, and we still level up her repel skill to make her extra attack just that much better. But like most servants, a lot of Tomoe's power is going to be coming from her skills. So starting off with her first skill, I know that I've kind of been memeing in this video, but this skill isn't actually all that bad because it's giving her a guts that lasts for 3 turns on a 6-turn cooldown, so the uptime is about half of the skill's downtime, which is not too bad. It's also a form of survivability that Castoria does not offer her, so she has a different layer to keep herself around. That's not bad in and of itself. She also gives herself free 100% crit damage for 3 turns, which again is not bad. That is like a Merlin level crit buff or the Scotty quick crit buff that she's able to give people, so she can do some really nasty crits. Like, I don't want the memes that I was kind of throwing out at the very beginning to kind of dismiss the fact that she does have at least decent enough survivability and she can do some very nasty crits if you do find those crits. The only thing that's very annoying about this skill is that after 3 turns, she's then going to stun herself for a turn, which is especially annoying because this is treated as a buff and not a debuff. So there's not really a way to get rid of this with Castoria's NP before she actually gets stunned. That can be very annoying sometimes because otherwise this would have some really good synergy with Castoria's NP that you want to fire anyway for the solemn defense, the big attack buffs, and you could cleanse this, but unfortunately the Nighthawk thing is treated as a buff, so you kind of just have to deal with it. But I guess they wanted to offset the fact that she was doing really big crit damage because they don't seem to like giving out 100% crit damage for 3 turns for free very often, right? Like, it's usually 100% for 1 turn or 100% for like 3 attacks for 3 turns. It usually just doesn't come for free like this because 100% crit damage is very, very strong. And I suppose at the very least, it only takes her out of the fight for 1 turn after she's already kind of gone ham taro with the crit, so it doesn't exactly ruin her, but it is something that is going to be quite annoying to kind of play around. But because Castoria is so good, it shouldn't get your Tomoe killed. But I do wish that maybe to compensate for this, maybe that Guts lasted for like 5 turns, just in case there was like an opening, or because your Tomoe was stalled for a turn, she would still at least have some extra insulation. But that's me kind of nitpicking the skill, and at the very least, I am just glad that they put this on the first skill that you're really only going to use in more difficult content. So if you want to use Tomoe over here as like more of a looping servant, because she is an AoE art servant, you don't have to even use the skill at all, and it's not going to like be a detriment at all whatsoever. Unlike in the case of like say Assassin Okita, where they slapped it on her NP like they thought that was a good idea, still waiting for them to, you know, take that stun off of there. They did it for Jean. I'm waiting for Assassin Okita. Where is my buffless angle? But anyway, this is a different video. This is not for Assassin Okita. That's a whole other video for a different time. Moving over to her second skill. This is kind of like her interesting, weird summer skill, because a lot of summer servants have these weird low cooldown skills, and this one is for Tomoe. It gives her a 30% arts buff for 1 turn on a 4-turn cooldown. It also gives her pretty good star weight on her arts card specifically, so she could do some arts crits to massively refund her NP. And if you're going to be using her as a farming servant, this is what you want to pop on your last turn, because this, in combination with her own NP that gives her an additional arts buff, she'll have an extra mana burst for that, because you have 30% from the skill and 20% from the NP, and so you'll get a lot of extra damage to clear that final node. And Lord knows that Tomoe is going to need that damage, because she doesn't exactly hit very hard. But if you want to use her in more difficult content, you pop this probably in conjunction with her third skill over here that bombs immediate 25 stars and then also refunds 10 stars every single turn. And so you want to pop this on the turn that you pop the third skill, because then you drop a lot of stars, you've got your arts cards, you refund them. Ideally, you do like an arts brave chain, so you spend all of your NP, you do a bunch of arts crits, and you refund all of your NP back, and then you can kind of keep trying to pop off that way. Like, that'd be kind of like an ideal turn or something if you really wanted to get in like a couple of NP chains going back to back. The other nice thing that I guess she does over here is that she gives herself debuff immunity for 1 time for 5 turns, which I'm assuming a lot of people are going to discredit, because they're not going to assume that the debuff immunity is going to counteract the Nighthawk buff that she has on the first skill, because it says treat this as a buff, but it actually does counteract the stun if you do time this correctly. Now, again, you can have it like wasted on like a random enemy burn, so you do want to kind of time this around the time that the stun is going to be hitting your Tomoe from her first skill, but you can actually use this to counteract that, so you don't even have to like deal with those stuns. Again, does kind of seem like they took the whole Okita thing and they were like, we really need to make sure that we do not make this same mistake a second time, or we just do not allow this servant to even function. So overall, I do kind of see what they're doing with her kit. They gave her like good survivability, really good crit damage, kind of an ability to do some burst damage on a low skill cooldown on skill 2, and then skill 3 kind of compensates for the stun. It also allows that burst damage to happen by providing immediate stars and by providing stars over time. So like, I can kind of see what they were going for with this servant. It's just that I would have either rather them gave her like additional things, like maybe a 30% battery if they wanted her to be a looping servant, or make her a single target so she could be a bit better in more difficult content, which that's where it seems she's more tailored to be put in. But honestly, if you have someone like Muramasa, you're probably just going to use him over Tomoe. I guess finally we'll go ahead and close out looking at her NP. She gives herself an additional 20% arts buff over here, as well as a 20% buster buff that lasts for the turn that she fires her NP, which is kind of nice because she does have a double arts, double buster deck, so she can actually do some really nice buster crits if that is your prerogative. If you happen to pull the Yang CE from the gacha, then you also can pair that with this NP, because it gives her burn to all of the enemies for 5 turns, and so she'll get that extra little bit of damage mod against those burned enemies, as well as gaining Pierce Invincibility, so that might be kind of good if you want to go down that route. But realistically, even though, you know, I'm trying to come out here and be very nice to Saber Tomoe, I'm even giving her like the, this is possibly the best Saber title, right? Because, you know, I want to be nice. Realistically, she's just kind of missing a lot, and unfortunately, it doesn't really seem like they go back and buff these summer servants all that often. So because of that, my hope that they will go back and give her little things here and there, like an additional buff type, right? Like let's say an attack buff or an NP damage buff, something along those lines. So that way she can massively gas up her damage by double buffing herself. It doesn't really feel as though that's going to be a very likely thing to happen in the future. Like, I think something they could easily do to help her be a bit better and more competitive with some of the other arts AoE sabers like Jason or Muramasa is allow that arts buff and that buster buff that she has to stack. It could be 20% for 3 turns, and that would allow her to be competitive with them who do the exact same thing, and then maybe, you know, give it an NP damage buff and maybe slap on like a damage mod against burned enemies. That could be kind of nice for more difficult content because that burn does last for 5 turns. Let's get some value out of that. Maybe slap on an NP damage buff that goes on her overcharge or something along those lines. Something just to kind of help her out a little bit because she does desperately need the help. But my Tomoe Sims, I need you guys to sound off in the comments down below. Instead of asking your thoughts on this servant, I want to know what you have brought your Saber Tomoe to that was like her most impressive achievement, right? I want to get it sounding off in the comments on what they've been able to do with this servant and how well they've been able to perform with them, because Tomoe definitely deserves a little bit of love. I mean, look at this servant. She is absolutely adorable. So let me know your greatest achievements in the comments down below. Now, if you're asking me for like a more serious opinion, should you summon for this servant? Absolutely not. You have a better gold rarity servant in Muramasa who absolutely just cooks Tomoe 8 ways to Sunday. Just there is no comparison between them. But then you even have Jason, who is free and is going to outperform Tomoe as a looping servant, but you could make the argument that Tomoe would be better in more difficult content because she does have survivability. She can do like kind of good burst turns, and her crit damage can look very impressive. But that's all that I've got for you guys in today's video. You guys have yourselves a nice day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace late, guys.